come on in, make yourself comfortable. We're going to get started for tonight. We have a juicy topic. I'm very, very excited for this. I know I'm not a familiar face, but I am Kristina. I work very closely with Yats on the Inner Yats team. I actually co-facilitate the gauntlet. And so for any of you people who are new to this page or who don't know what the gauntlet is our flagship accelerated inner work program. Really, it's a journey. It is so incredible. And so you've probably seen us, post some things here and there, but really the best way to understand what it is to, talk to people who have done it. Right now we've been running it for quite some time. So we have 350, almost 400 people that have been through it. So there are a lot of Gauntlet grads out there. I know that we're going to have some Gauntlet people hop in on here. So welcome. So as I was saying, I do help facilitate the Gauntlet, and we actually have, Yats is on a Gauntlet call right now. So that is why he is not here and I am acting in his stead. And then we also have a Gauntlet graduate class tomorrow night, which I'm really, really excited about. So I just wanted to add that in there. And then also, I just wanted to mention that we also have a monthly membership program called the Emotional Freedom Collective. I'm going to talk a little bit more at the end about both of those programs, but the Emotional Freedom Collective, or the EFC, that is our online community that we have, and it is not as intense as the Gauntlet, but it is still a guided self-healing program. And so inside we do 2 live calls a month, and we also have a Facebook community for support. We have a guided journal. We have a mini course for you guys. So it's a really, really cool container, and it's actually filled with this beautiful balance of people that have been through the Gauntlet, and they have a deeper level of understanding or consciousness of, their wounds and how to heal. And then we also have just people that are, dipping their toes in the water, so to speak, just, getting into the healing and into the inner work. So it's a really cool program. And actually, so I help out with that too. And earlier Yats was talking about, okay, what topics do we want to do for August? And so, we typically brainstorm among the team. And so I am a Leo. My birthday was this past Sunday. And so as a fire sign, summer, I love it. It's hot, it's steamy, it's sizzly. And so when Yats and I and the team, when we were all just chatting about, what topic should we do? I was like, we're talking about sex, okay? Let's fucking do it. It's just you talk about hot girl summer, hot boy summer, whatever you want to call it. Let's just be real. You tend to feel sexier. You just feel more alive, more radiant. You're just in touch with, that fire, that passion. So that is when we decided to do sex, intimacy, and trust for the topic for August for the Emotional Freedom Collective. And, we wanted to bring that topic to everyone out here on Instagram. So thank you guys for joining us. We're going to go deep into this topic. And also, we have one more live call on this topic next Tuesday, which Yats is going to be running. So, it's going to be a really great call. As I said, we're going to be talking tonight about sex, intimacy, and trust. And so, on this topic of sex, everyone wants to talk about it, but it's a little taboo because of so much of our conditioning. So whether you have, direct conditioning from whoever, it could be your family, religious organizations, or, really just anyone in your community growing up, that, it could be direct, where people are telling you that, sex is bad. You should only be intimate with people that you're, in marriage with, or anything like that. There's that type of direct conditioning that can just tell you, stay away. And it can almost make it feel shameful too, to engage in any type of sexual act. From anywhere to anything that you would do before sex, to also just, women using sanitary products, those kind of things can also be shamed just because of your conditioning. And then there's also just indirect conditioning that we get about it. And so I would say as a whole, and I know a lot of people and I've talked to a lot of people. I don't think any of us really have super supportive, open conversations about sex in general, right? You kind of get that awkward talk with a parent, and that's kind of it. You have sex ed. It's just, you don't really talk about it, and you're just kind of like left in the dark. And so that also creates this, uncomfortableness with intimacy and this uncomfortableness with, sex in general. But, really, sex is powerful. It is probably like the most powerful thing. So if we're looking at, what is sex from, a physiological perspective, I mean, all it takes is just, two people coming together in union. And, I don't need to get into the details, but you literally just need two little cells and you can create life. And it's incredible to even think that, like when you think about a woman who is literally growing a tiny being inside of her, like that in and of itself is just mind-blowing. And then thinking about how that happened is like, wow, it's so powerful. And so this is what makes, life so great. I mean, it also helps our survival. So that's why sex also feels so great, because, it's important that we are procreating. So, on this topic, it's, sex just goes, beyond the physical. And that's really what we're going to, dive deep into. And, when we think about that physiological aspect of it, of course, sex is going to feel good, just from a mechanical standpoint, and unfortunately, even for, people that have been in situations where they've been, sexually assaulted or what have you, a lot of those people do orgasm just because it's a natural response to having sex. And so they can also just internalize a lot of shame about that. So really it's not to feel shame for, and my heart goes out to you if you've been in a situation like that, but it is a physiological response. And so, a lot of people, you might be able to argue with me and say, yeah, like sex, like it feels great. Like I can have sex with anyone, like, hit it and quit it, like all that stuff. And yeah, that's absolutely true. You can have great sex on a one night stand, you can orgasm, all by yourself. Like all of those things are absolutely true. But there's also this really amazing element of sex that is just really amplified when we have this deep connection with another person, when we're able to get really intimate with somebody. And really that is founded on this trust that we have with another person. And so we're going to really talk about like, what does that mean? Like, what does intimacy mean? And so, when we look at intimacy, it's really being able to be fully seen by the other person and to just express ourselves. As humans, we're messy, especially, I'm speaking on behalf of women, like women are just messy. So it's just, it's being able to be seen like in our, air quote neediness and our, messiness and all of those things, and having the other person not judge us, just hold space for us. And we can have really loving, relationships with people that fully accept us. But that's also something that we need to do, for ourselves, because when we can fully, trust in ourselves and when we can fully accept ourselves, that's when we'll really, not only just attract somebody who can do that, but we're also going to welcome them into our lives. And we're really going to just keep them there. We're not going to push them away. And this is a big dynamic that, we also see when we're looking at that anxious and avoidant, that push and pull dynamic. So, I actually have a question for you guys. So I'd love to hear from you because, so if you're new to the page, I'm just going to, I'm going to briefly go over this just because it's important just for the question that I'm going to ask. But it's also just a reiteration and just a generalization. But when we're looking at, like attachment theory, and there is that very classic bond between the anxiously attached person and the avoidant. So for those of you guys who aren't super aware of that, the anxiously attached person, they typically are, super preoccupied with their relationship, and they get a lot of their sense of self from their romantic relationship. And so that's why they're so preoccupied with it. They're constantly thinking about the other person. They're, chasing the other person. They're constantly pulling for that person. There's like, ooh, like I need more time. And it never really seems to be enough. And so The avoidant, they just tend to attract because it's all about, and this is what we go through in, like the gauntlet and a lot of the things that we post on our page, but it is all about, going back to our childhood and like looking at our core wounds and looking at how like love was modeled to us. But really, until we heal those wounds, we're going to be attracting those people. The anxious is going to attract the avoidant and vice versa. So the avoidant, this is the person that typically, they're afraid of intimacy. They really fear it. And when they get close, but they really want it. So this is where you'll see, oh my gosh, this person was so into me. They kept messaging me. They were talking about the future, blah, 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 blah. And then, you go on like one date and then they ghost you. And that's because they really do want to be intimate, but they're terrified of it. So when they get too close, they run away. So this is the same thing as, let's just say, this person's all about you, you go on a date, and then, lo and behold, they end up, in your bed that night, what have you. And that's when you'll see they might be like, yeah, like, I gotta go. They're not staying the night. They're just like, ooh, sleeping in bed with somebody, this is a little too intimate. And they just get triggered and they feel scared. And so really just, I think that's a good message for everyone in here is like, if you've been in that situation before, and I have, it's just a reflection of their own fear. And so it's not something for us to, take personally, but it is something that we can, protect ourselves from just by building our own internal security and learning how to, build up into intimacy. But I want to go back to my question that I have for you lovely people. So in this dynamic of the anxious and avoidant, so we tend to see that because it seems to be, it is typically chaotic. So there's a lot of like stress hormones that are going about, and we have a bunch of posts on this specifically. I'm not really going to go into, the sciencey aspect of it, but all we really need to know is that when we have that dynamic, the push and pull, there's somebody always running away and somebody always chasing, and that just creates, just our stress hormones are like, going berserk. And so there's so much that, what we tend to do is we feel those things, we feel those emotions, we feel those stress hormones, and we interpret them to be chemistry. And we're like, oh my gosh, the chemistry is just flying. We just have like a really fucking amazing sex. It's just like, it's electric, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And so I have a question, okay? I'm being brutally honest with yourself, because guess what? I mean, all I can see is just usernames. I don't know who a lot of you guys are, but I am interested to hear, okay? If you can put your ego aside, so put aside that part of yourself that wants to believe that you had the best sex of your life with this person. If you can think of a dynamic or a relationship that you had this dynamic, I really want to know, was that actually the best sex of your life? I'm very curious to hear. So if you want to just put in like, what was your experience like that? I would love to see it. But yeah, my whole point in just even asking that question is to draw awareness around, what makes sex so great, or what makes great sex, because it's a really, really, important aspect that makes a romantic relationship, because, it's not something we're doing with, our friends and our family and the like. So it really is what makes, this bond, this union so damn special. And there's so much that goes into it. And so, that's a reflection question. I don't really see anybody putting in the comments, which is okay. I know we can be a little timid online, which is great, but I do see, and I hear it all the time when people talk about how they're in this relationship, and, it basically sounds like a toxic relationship where there's just, a lot of chaos and whatnot, and the people are like, but it was the best sex ever. And so, and it's not to negate that, because like I said, there is that physiological aspect, but my point in bringing this up is to really just question, like, was it really the best sex? And to challenge you and to just point out that there is actually much more profound sex out there that's just off the charts. And so what is really, really important about that is, and the underlying thing is this aspect of trust, like trusting the other person. Because the thing is that a lot of us, when we get into relationships, and if you're, following this account, it's likely that you have some difficulties in your relationships. So this might be something that super pertains to you. So when we're in these relationships, when we don't feel safe within ourselves, when we don't trust ourselves, this is a really big aspect that gets in our way of, having great sex, of creating this intimacy, right? Because it's like the trust leads to like this intimacy that leads to like this mind-blowing sex, right? And so first and foremost, like one of the biggest things that gets in our way is just like this mistrust. And so we learn to trust ourselves based on our previous experiences. And what I'm specifically talking about would be our relationships with our parents, like growing up, and just looking at, what was my relationship like with, my parents? How was love modeled to me? And just like looking at and it's typically, I'm speaking as a heterosexual female. So of course this is from my point of view and also from like what we see so frequently. So this is also for you to do your own digging on, but it does tend to be with the opposite sex parents. So, for me, it's looking at, okay, well, like how did my dad show me how, like a man should, treat a woman? And it's all about like that modeling. And I've seen it so much, I've worked with so many women, and a lot of them have told me, very unfortunately, that, they didn't have a dad there to protect them, to help them develop this level of trust with other humans. And that also, translates into trusting oneself. And so what I see is that, when they're having these relationships, when they're going into romantic relationships, they actually have a hard time like orgasming because they can't fall into the trust of being with another person. And, I know for me, a big aspect, my dad passed when I was 13 years old. So, I didn't have his full protection. And so when I'm like looking at, my relationship with men, it is hard for me to trust. And I do have, I still have like some small like trust issues with men. It's something I'm working on. But and I've seen it just like across the board with like how it has, prevented me from fully participating in relationships in a really profound way. Or even just like having really great sex. Like it's funny because I had to bring up that question because Yats and I, we really love the mind-body connection, and Kyle too. If you guys know Kyle, he is on the team also. He is fucking incredible. I adore him. And, we all love the mind-body connection. And so one thing that would really come up for me was when I was in the anxious role and I was, chasing the avoidant, and, we would have sex, it would actually manifest for me as UTIs. And so, a lot of people would be like, yeah, it's the best sex I ever had, like great orgasms. And I was like, Jesus, all I got was a fucking UTI. So, I know that's a little too much information for some of you guys, but we do go pretty deep and we get pretty open, on the Gauntlet program, and just like in general in this community. So I'm pretty much an open book. So I just wanted to just throw that out there. But really what my body was telling me was just, that I was in these unsafe relationships. There was no trust there. These were men that I didn't really know. And so how could I trust them? And so that was just never modeled to me, right? Because just not having a dad, like he was also sick when I was, going through my early adolescence. And so, there's just a big part of that was missing. And so I never really learned how to fall into somebody like fully protecting me and to, just being able to be seen. And so when we talk about this aspect of like trust, it's really trusting that the other person isn't going to, abandon us or reject us or invalidate us for expressing who we are, for being who we are. So a really, really important part about trust is that authenticity and being who you really are, feeling safe to be who you really, really are. And so that is two parts where you need to have trust within yourself and within the other person. And so typically if you don't trust the other person and you're, in a relationship with them or, whatever it is reflective to a degree of like the trust that you have within yourself. And so if you are with somebody who is very trustworthy and they've proven themselves to you time and time again, it's also important for you to like look inward and say, what am I not trusting about myself? Like, what walls do I still have up? And so if you're used to, constantly being shut down, so if you're used to speaking your truth and somebody, just invalidating you all the time, or, just like running away from you, like leaving you high and dry, if you're, used to just people leaving, rejecting you, any of those things, like it's a really scary place to be. And what happens is when we feel like threatened, we start to just put up walls, and we start to learn that it's not safe for us to speak our truth, to express who we are, to be who we are, any of those things. And if we look at sex, and intimacy, really, it requires us to be fully seen, and even like I see this a lot also with like even like body image. A lot of people that struggle with body image, they have a hard time, falling into really enjoying sex because they're so insecure about, how they look, what their partner thinks of how they look, all of those things. And so these insecurities that we, bring into a relationship, into the bedroom, they are going to impact it. And so this is where we're going to look at, okay, well, like, what do I do? And so, it is important. Like I said, I think there's a beautiful blend of the internal and the external. So when you're looking at, how do I trust myself? There's so much inner work that needs to be done. And if you guys are ever looking for guidance, we do have 2 inner work programs. But learning to trust yourself is a huge one. And it's hard to do that because, like I said, from just past conditioning, we've been told time and time and time again that we're wrong, we're not good enough, we're unlovable, we need to do to, be worthy of love, all these things. And so it's natural, and it's nothing to shame ourselves for. It's just like, okay, I don't trust myself. I don't feel secure in who I am. And so naturally, we can't be that with another person. So it's really important for us to do our own work, right? And ground in ourselves, ground in who we really are, coming back home to ourselves and being like, this is who I am. And I love me, accepting, the good parts, accepting, the air quote, like bad parts. And that's a big part of what, shadow work is just bringing out those exiled parts, those parts that we air quote, like judge to be terrible or awful, or, insert any other bad word. And so, it's important for us to just like radically accept who we are, and so that way we can have this sense of self, this sense of self-love. We can really like trust ourselves to make decisions about life, decisions about people that we bring into our lives, that we attract into our lives, and that we allow to stay. And that's a big one, because a lot of people, some people are all about the law of attraction. Some people can't get on board, and that's okay. What's important is who are you allowing to stay into your life? That's the main thing. It's like, okay, regardless of whether or not you believe in, attracting another person, it's like, okay, well, if you're with somebody who isn't treating you right, why are you allowing them to stay? And that typically goes back to a wound from the past. And again, this is not to shame or blame anyone. It's just to draw awareness around this. So once we can, do our own inner work, we can also identify, and this is a big part, identify safe people to be ourselves with. And actually, this is one of, I would say, the most successful aspects that we have in the gauntlet, is because we do small cohorts, and Yats and I, we ensure this really safe space. And we are, that's like one of the main things, is being able to be seen in our pain. And we actually have this practice called eye gazing. And so if anyone's done it, it's really, really cool. It's a really cool practice, and it can just like change your life. It can just shift your perception. I mean, I love hearing everyone's reactions with it. So if anyone has done eye gazing before, please put it in the comments, just so that everyone else can be like in the know for like what it is, what it feels like, any of those things. But really it's all about being able to be completely seen in your pain, in your truth, in anything that you've been through. And having the other person just accept, they're not trying to fix you. They're not trying to give you advice or anything. They're just holding space for you. And they're just like, yeah, like, I still love you. Like, I still see that you're, worthy. I still see, I see your wounds, but I see your skills, and I see how beautiful of a person you are. And so that's a really, important aspect of us being able to, identify those safe people. And it's so hard for so many of us because our wounds typically come from the people that are supposed to love us most. So a lot of our rejection, abandonment wounds, invalidation wounds, they come from, our family members, whether it be a mom, a dad, a grandparent, a caregiver, siblings, really anyone, that's going to really impact our ability to feel safe within ourselves. But as I said, it's really important for us to be able to identify who is safe. Can I trust this person with my truth? And the more that you do that, the more that you're going to, trust yourself and trust other people. And so that's also when, the walls can come down a little bit and you're going to be able to, just let people in. And it's good. And there's a difference between, having boundaries and having walls. And one of the differences is, when you're speaking your truth and that's constantly being, negated and somebody's like, no, you just learn to like shut up and like not speak your truth. And then the walls go up. But really boundaries are meant to, so the walls are meant to keep people out, and then the boundaries are meant to like really keep people in while you're protecting yourself. So when you're setting a boundary, you're really just like, hey, like, I really care about this relationship and this is what I need in order for this relationship to still work. Whereas like that wall that comes up, it's just kind of like you shut down, you're not expressing yourself. And so, from there, once we can start again, like expressing ourselves and having those hard conversations. And, I think Teal Swan said it, but she talked about, and a lot of people are saying it too, but when we look at conflict, so many of us don't know how to have healthy conflict. And so really, we're scared of it, but conflict is meant to bring people together, and it can be done healthily. It doesn't have to be, when I say conflict, I think myself included and so many of you guys out there, what probably comes to mind is like, some formal, intimidating discussion where you like sit down and we're like, we need to have a talk. And, what's being said is probably something scary. It's probably like, maybe people are yelling. Like conflict just does not, whenever I hear that word, I'm like, that does not conjure a good image, or like a flowers and daisies like image. So, conflict in and of itself can really, really strengthen a relationship. So that's one thing to, keep in mind. And so, the more that we can do that, the more that we find these safe people, we embody who we are, then we're able to go to these deep, deep levels of intimacy. And so this is just like, across the board, you're able to be intimate emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, sexually, energetically, all of those things. And somebody that I'm currently working with, he said this really beautiful, phrase, and he just worded it like this, when it comes to a relationship, it's really important to get ugly with the other person. And what he meant by that is just, it's important for the other person to see us in all of who we are. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of just like consistent collaboration with the other person. But like once you can get to like that level, you just start to fall into this peace of trust and just like knowing that this person wouldn't hurt you. They have their own, boundaries and needs and preferences and all those things, but it's going to take a lot for them to leave you. You trust them. You trust them even if like you're just in like a triggering moment and you kind of like lose your shit. You trust them to be able to hold space for that anger. Or, I actually had one of my really good friends, she had just given birth, and obviously that's super, super emotional event that you could go through. And she was telling me, she's like, yeah, she was so emotional because of all the like COVID stuff. It was like way past, all like the height of COVID, but she just like lost it because she was so upset because they wouldn't let her, her mother, so like the grandmother, come back, even though they had already told her that she could. So, she's in that heightened state and she's just like loses it. And she's just like hysterically crying. And she was, kind of, she said she was like kind of embarrassed about it, but her partner wasn't going anywhere. She felt safe to express that emotion with him. And so once we can get there, like I said, there's these deeper levels of just intimacy that we can reach. And, and that obviously like translates like into the bedroom, into sex, and like what you feel safe exploring with the other person. And a big part about sex is, expressing your needs and your wants and your preferences. And a lot of us just don't know how to do that because of our conditioning, that just kind of says that sex is a little, taboo, and it's or taboo topic, and we can't talk about it, but everyone wants to talk about it, right? So one thing that I wanted to really highlight, is, even in like my own personal experience, with this, is the once you can fully trust this person, there is this energetic bond. You can like feel this person's energy while the intimacy is building, to the point where the orgasm can actually start to build even before you're touching. And so that is from a female perspective. I would love to hear you guys chime in to see if you've ever had that experience. And then also the men to chime in as well. But really, it's amazing to, see that, it was really amazing for me to like experience like that feeling. It just like literally like starts in your body even before the other person is like touching you. It's just like that energetic bond. Like you can just feel each other's energies. You can feel each other's just like presence and safety and fall into it. And it's pretty fucking powerful. And I will say that, it's especially important for women to feel safe, because there's just like this level of freeness that they feel, and this protection that they feel from, that masculine holding that space for them, and just really being able to be seen. And it does, definitely goes both ways, but it's super, super important to feel that. And then, like I said, just going from there, it's just, it's incredible. So, I just wanted to, talk, just like kind of bring up those certain points. And I'm actually going to bring up somebody, that is also on our team. And so she is amazing. Her name is Stephine. And so I'm going to bring her on in just a second. So, but before I do that, I am just going to, talk about her a little bit. So, and she's going to do a little bio too, but like I said, she has been working with us for, the past couple of months. She's very near and dear to my heart. We are soul sisters. So, Yats had asked me to do a live on his behalf. And I there's always strength in numbers. So I was like, yeah, like, let's talk about sex. And I am bringing on Stephine because I was literally like, she is the person to bring on for this. So I'm so excited to have her here. So I'm just going to bring her on in a second. So everyone hold on. Here she comes. Oops. All right. So Stephine, you have to request to join, because I've got a couple people in here that are not you. So whenever you do that, you guys can do that. Or whenever you can do that, Stephine. Let me see. Oh, let me see if I can find you. I might be able to invite you if I can multitask. I'm also not good at multitasking, everyone. So my apologies. Oh, there we go. There she is. Alrighty. There she is. Hello, my beautiful
Hello.
friend.
I'll just hold myself. How about that? Hi.
Hi, how are you? You look so beautiful and radiant.
Thank you. I know. Well, I started getting red because of all the sex talk, and then
Of course.
I was trying to figure out where to put my camera, and then I couldn't join, so I'm kind of red right now. It's a little nervous, but I'm okay.
Yeah, well, you look fabulous. You look so good. And I'm so excited to have you on here. So, I'll do some of your bio, but I do want you to, jump in when you can. But so Stephine, you did the gauntlet in January.
Yes, graduated March. If we
Yes.
call it graduation, so yes.
Graduation. Yes. Yes, we do. It's a very special event. Very, very special. And so, like one of my questions for you, because this is really important too for anyone who's like hopping on, is, what actually brought you, to the gauntlet? Are you trying to turn everyone on? We see your
Sorry,
baby.
sorry. I'm trying to set my phone down. It's like, okay, so the gauntlet changed so much of my inner soul. So I came to the gauntlet. I'll be pretty vulnerable here. Pretty broken. Um, Stuck, really stuck. So, I knew I had like some really deep wounds from my childhood, but I had saw a couple posts from Yats like attachment theory, and then I like started seeing like um just different things on like reparenting. I'm like, what is this reparenting? Because I'm a mom of three boys, so I'm like reparenting, like um and I just wasn't getting that with my therapist or any therapist I've ever, you know. It was just more like, well, what's going on this week? Let's talk, not like let's dive deep.
Hmm.
So that's why
Mm,
I reached out. Really, I was just kind of tired of the same patterns. So
mm. Yeah, that's so many people, and I'm sure like so many people can relate who are on here. And so it's like the patterns, we get to a point where we're like, why is this still happening? And it's so painful.
it
So
is. It is. Yeah.
yeah, it's like you're just, yeah, you're like so frustrated. You're just like, not again. Like, not again.
Yeah,
And
and it's kind of too, if you are a parent, you want better. You're like, I don't
that,
want to create this generational trauma that just continues, and it's, I knew I could do much better, so that's why I reached.
yeah,
So
that's beautiful. And yeah, that's so many people too. They're just like, I can't. I like see this happening. I see myself becoming like my mother or my father. And it's like, how do I not expose my children to the same things? So yeah, so that's beautiful that you were able to like realize that and like recognize that.
yeah.
And so I guess my next question is just what were like, and you could say like one to three, but like what would you say your biggest like gains from doing the gauntlet were?
I think my biggest gain was really understanding what I went in thinking my core wound was, ended up being really something different. I know that sounds funny, but through a lot of the inner work, like meditations that we would do, what ended up really being at the heart of my pain was something that I was really kind of adolescent minded to even knowing existed.
Mm,
And having those raw conversations with yourself, Yats, where, because me in the gauntlet, I was really walled up for a while. So it took me a little bit to come out, and it's having those hard conversations. Like I never had somebody that went through that with me. What you were just saying, having that, I mean, I remember being kind of angry at some point inside the gauntlet, like, how dare he say this to me, or and just having somebody love me in that way, having somebody tell me stuff that isn't easy to tell somebody.
mm,
I needed that because there was a part of me that could feel people around me kind of giving up, in a sense, like you don't want to go there with Steph, because it's not easy, because I was so resistant, very resistant.
mm.
So
Yeah. Would you
yeah.
say like those were like your walls that you had put up?
Yeah, definitely the wins were taking those walls down, as well as being able to really, really understand how to love myself, um,
Mm,
fully, fully
mm,
love me and see me for who I really am. So,
yeah. So
yeah.
would you say that like those walls that you put up, like were you able to see like why you put them up? Like earlier I had talked about how like we tend to put walls up when, we speak our truth, ask for what we want and need, but just constantly we're getting battered down. And then we're just like, okay, well, like I'm just not going to say anything, or I'm just going to like put on a front to some level. So would you say that was the case for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a wall, a lot of walls. It was a lot of shaming. Um, and it was also protection, right? Self-protection. Like it's that ego wanting you to survive, not really thrive. It's that
Mm,
conditioning. It's not wanting to hear the truth. when it's like, look, you need to change some things.
Mm,
And that wasn't easy. That was not
mhm.
easy. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's hard to change, right? Because we like to stay the same. So
It's true. We do. We like that comfort zone.
we do. We do. And that's why, like, just speaking on that topic for everyone who's listening, when we're looking at like change in our lives, like there's a part of ourselves that like we don't like change because it's too much, it's too scary. So if you're ever like looking to, sometimes it's just best to do small little changes. So that way you don't get like overwhelmed and it doesn't feel like, oh
Yeah.
my God, what is this? So
Right.
yeah. I mean, my motto is always baby steps. Some people take leaps, which is fine. I think we're all in our own, journey and trajectory, but I think baby steps is always, a great
You're
motto to
so
live.
you're so tan and I'm so red. Like I'm looking at myself like, oh my Lord, I look like a strawberry. Anyway, okay.
You look beautiful. Everyone tell Stephine how beautiful she looks. Please and thank you. Thank you in advance. So beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to just kind of like go into like your own relationship with, just like sex, intimacy, and trust. And so one thing, so last Tuesday, we had an Emotional Freedom Collective call on this very topic. And so Stephine was on the call with Yats, and I know that she was talking to like a lot of women in there. And, it's when we're talking about sex, like a lot of us, I would say, we're all different, but we use sex for different things, right? So a lot of us are using sex like for connection, for validation. We're using it to maybe keep the peace. And what sex really is a celebration of two people that really love each other, that really, I mean, at its, highest, I guess, like ultimate state of consciousness. I mean, not always, but like, I guess that's my point in bringing up like the best sex is going to be like that, those high levels of consciousness, with like two people that are highly conscious, highly aware, that are awakened, enlightened, whatever you want to say, but two people that can be really vulnerable, that can be seen, that can, just feel that trust with their partner. And like what really takes sex from like good to like blissful, and just like you're just like blissed out. But that's like the goal, right? That's like our goal, is to find somebody like that. But we also are wrestling some demons where we're looking for sex validation, and all those things I listed. So I would say for me, I definitely, in my 20s, I was always like using sex like to gain validation. It's like, okay, this guy had sex with me, so all right, I'm good. Like, got my validation for the weekend. That's like next weekend, whatever, whatever. And then it took me a while to really get into that phase of like just like really enjoying my sexuality and like using it like for pleasure, like solely for pleasure, and just like being like, oh, like I like my sensuality, I like my sexuality, like all of those things. It definitely took me a while to get there, but now like I've had few but very profound experiences where it has been that like high level of consciousness with a trusted person, and it's just like, yeah, once you kind of experience that, you're like, yeah, I can't do the other shit. So my
Right.
question for you is just like, speaking on what I just did, it's like, what has your experience been with like how you've used sex, and like just, even just like giving everybody maybe some background on like your own romantic relationship, and like just, yeah, anything like that you want to add to the table, bring to the table, add to the conversation.
Woo! Okay, so this is the thing. Sex for me, I think happened I was way too young. So I wasn't as protected as what I think I should have been young. And I know more and more young girls, having sex, especially now. But I guess my voice now to a lot of women, young women, is just to caution that, because for me, I was looking for what you just said, that connective tissue of validation and love, and I use sex to feel that. And actually, I am married. And so for me and my husband, I I guess I would be the queen of makeup sex, So
Mhm.
let's not really talk about it. Um, let's just have sex, you know? I mean, I did marry you for a reason. So, you know, and for me, it was number one on my list before I married him. Like I remember saying like I give all these props to these women who marry without knowing, you know, and they wait until
Mm,
after marriage, but like I could never do that. This is so important to me. I have to know that this is good, you know. And what I realized about myself is sex to me now, my definition has changed, right?
mm,
So it was just like this physical aspect of like something that I needed in my life to feel that like connection, even if it was for a short amount of time. But at least I was wanted and
mm,
given that attention momentarily, right? From him or past partners. But now it's like, if you were to ask me what's my definition, it's like it's mental, you know, and to not feel guilty to draw boundaries. Like now I'm like, okay, I'm drawing a boundary, not a wall, but I'm upset with you. And no, you're not going to make me feel guilty. You don't
mm.
need this. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think women in society can sometimes feel like that. I've talked to other women, um, you know, kind of obligated almost like, you know, I don't want to make him resent me because I'm upset and I know he
Right.
needs this. And so for me, I'm just in a different place with that now.
Mm.
So I don't know if that makes sense,
Yeah,
but
no, for sure. And I just wanted to add and like ask a question, but it's, I feel like so many women, when, or in like men too, it's kind of like when if you don't feel really like fully secure in like yourself and what you bring to the table in the relationship, and this can actually happen a lot. I'm just going to use like kind of like that generalized, dynamic of like if the man is like the breadwinner and like the woman is just kind of like staying at home like caring for the kids or what have you, like if her role isn't valued as much, just like child rearing, or like maybe she's just making substantially less money or whatever it is, if she doesn't feel secure in what she brings to the table, and also if her partner isn't fully honoring that, there can be this like subconscious like unsaid expectation that she is there for sex, and that she has to like put out. And of course, like this can go like both ways. And
yeah,
so it's,
I just don't. I
yeah.
think my husband, if I was like, you know, and I've said it to him before, I think he would just be like, okay, if you need to go there, go for it, you know?
Mhm.
Where for me as a woman, I'm like, you know, I want you so bad right now, but I'm so mad at you, you know? And
Mhm.
I just, I think for me, you know, connection, you know, to have like this romance or just that small time with him is now a lot more valuable in that space, maybe because of
Mhm.
where we are at. But before, I think it was just the necessity and going after that feeling, that adrenaline feeling of, look, you
Mhm.
just came through the door and I want you now. And I think that it's important to not lose sight of that when you're in a long-term relationship, but to what you just said, not feel like obligated, you know, when you're trying to create a healthy boundary. And what you were talking about before, like in the gauntlet, I learned like that's not a wall. That just feels odd to you because you're not used to putting those boundaries up. And now I know how to do that. So
Mhm. Yeah. And so like what it sounds like, and this is like different for everyone, but in the example like I gave with kind of like the money dynamic, that might not that might not necessarily be true for like people out there, but it could also just be like, that need to be like, like this is something that keeps us together, or like this is something that
yeah,
keeps this person from leaving it, what keeps the relationship just like intact to some degree.
yeah,
Um, yeah. And so that, and like, that's the whole point of like when we do the inner work, it's like really getting to like the bare bones of like, okay, well, like, what's my intention for doing these things? Where is it coming from?
right.
And so I guess like my question for you, because you had said it and I wanted just a little like clarification, because I think it's important. I think it's a really great point. But you had talked about like makeup sex. And so I was wondering, were you, using sex to like after the actual like fight, or in or to replace the actual fight?
After the fight. Yeah.
Mm,
It's like the intense feeling of battle. It's not done. It's not over yet. Let's finish it the right way. So,
Right. So would like a conflict, so would a resolution be reached?
I think that, and I think that momentarily, yes, but still, I mean, he would probably tell you the talking session happened the next day. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I mean? But for the moment, she's fine,
Yeah.
So and then, you forget things and you're like, why was I even mad? And then you start repeating patterns. And I want to bring up a point before I forget it is sometimes you find yourself in a relationship, you're like, this is all we have in connection is like sex.
Mm.
You're my roommate. Wait, no, you're my husband. you know? So you fall into these seasons with each other if you've been married for a long time and you have kids and you've got work and everything. And so when you do put up a healthy boundary to say, hey, this isn't something that I desire right now, it's also you rejecting that piece that's really connecting you to because you're
Mm.
so busy. So you're afraid. You don't want to lose that because that
Mhm.
person is everything to you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That makes a lot
it's
of sense. Yeah.
just, it's a hard dynamic.
No, for sure, for sure. So, and that makes a lot of sense, like what you said. So, thank you for sharing that because it's like I said, it's like super beneficial. And even, on that aspect of like, when we talk about like conflict and, sure, like I was kind of speaking of like it doesn't need to be, supercharged and angry, but like, if it is like that is okay too. It's just showing where, like our anger is just showing where our boundaries are being crossed, where our needs are not being met, where we're feeling like we don't have permission to express ourselves, like any of those things. And so like the anger, it's not we don't want to like spiritually bypass the anger and be like, oh yeah, like let's have a calm adult like conversation. Like that's the whole point of like falling into trust and being really vulnerable with somebody is being like, I'm fucking pissed and like letting them see your anger. While like also knowing that you can feel safe with them. You like they're not going to like hurt you in um in a sexual like physical way. They're going to they need to say their truth, and that's going to like lead to some type of conflict resolution. So
Right, right.
and then also like that anger you can channel it into like really great sex too. So that's just something I wanted to add. But it is like it is interesting to like hear like how people have like different dynamics with their romantic partner and like how all those things play out to create like trust and intimacy and ultimately really great sex.
Or
So
if you are a woman that is, we did in the last live call, we figured out, okay, what's more important to you? And mine is high on the physical
mm,
side, right? So it's like in society, is that okay? You talked about that earlier, like for women to admit that, like to have like a high sex drive, like, is that acceptable to
mm,
voice that, like maybe I don't need to talk, but I just need this from you. And it's hard to learn how to like express those things sometimes, in
right.
the right way. So,
Mm.
yeah, somebody said love languages, but I love the graphics. That's
I know
adorable.
we're getting lots of great emojis, and also I don't like I haven't done a ton of lives, but I have so many like requests for people to join this live, and I'm like no, none of you guys are coming on because I'm terrified of what would happen if somebody came
Oh my
on.
gosh, yes. No, don't do that to me. 'Cause
No, and actually, the other side that actually did happen to Yats once with a naked person. So, guys, I, I would, you guys are not invited on the. I see. This is my trust. I'm like, who are my safe people? Stephine is a safe person. She is allowed on this live. Nobody else. Let me see. I don't know who's even, who's even requested. But no, sorry, you guys are just nope. I'm sorry, you're not invited. Maybe if I, so this is we're building into trust and intimacy. Maybe if I get to know you and we have a conversation, maybe someday you'll be invited on a live. But
yeah.
Stevie earned that. Oh, sorry, Stephanie is also called Stevie. She also goes by Stephanie. So, but yeah, Stephanie has earned my trust. So that is why
Yes.
she is
And
on here.
it's funny because before the gauntlet, inside my marriage, we were having trust issues, but it all came back to my core wounds.
Mm,
It wasn't just my husband. My husband, it's stuff, it was me. It's internally like what was missed way back when I was a little girl. And so in building that now, it's like, okay, I feel a little bit more grounded to say what I need. You know, like
Mm.
this is what sex looks like for me now. And it's changed. Like you're with somebody for 15 years. It's not what it was 10 years ago. It's different now. So,
Yeah. And so
yeah.
I would say one question that I have for you is how did you build that trust with your partner?
Well, I think that are you talking about trust revolving around sex or
Just like
rebuild
in
trust?
general in the relationship, just in general, like with or you know, just like you said, you had trust issues, but like how has it evolved and gotten better? You know what I mean? So it's like how like in terms of like you know setting more boundaries, speaking your piece, like any of those things.
I think speaking my piece in the right way,
Mm,
you know, understanding like my own cadence, like my own, you know, the way that you are able to communicate isn't always the way that somebody can hear you, I guess, if that makes sense. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
um, and also like being completely honest, even if it's gonna hurt. It might hurt, but you have to be completely honest if you want that back. And honestly, like I was afraid to say, okay, if this is going to continue, then, and it's not an ultimatum, but it's just living inside this space. This is what I need. And if I can't get it, and then actually saying that and then thinking, oh my gosh, if they don't follow through, then I'm going to be alone, you know? But then like the gauntlet's like, well,
Yeah.
Stephine, like you're going to be alone, but you'd be okay.
Right.
And you know, and like learning that, like, you know what,
Mm,
like I would be okay. Fucking yes, you know, and like just owning that and feeling that, that power, you know, for
mhm.
myself, that love for myself, that's where it had to start.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a great point to bring up is like looking back at, you know, the trust that we have for ourselves is, you know, just believing that no matter what the outcome is that we'll be able to handle it. And that's like so important because a lot of us we we stay in relationships just because, you know, we it's scary to leave them. We have this attachment. It's scary to leave. We're just like, you know, all of those things. So it's really, you know, complicated and there's a lot of like emotions that kind of like get in the way. But so this is where, you know, I know it can feel like so scary to like leave a relationship or to, you know, start being and like who you are and to express who you are, express your needs. But it's like so imperative to do if we want to have these really strong, profound relationships. So really, really important. And I just wanted to
or
kind of like
to be
highlight that.
who you've become.
What's that?
Maybe for me, I was afraid to be who I had become
Mm,
because like who I was, like that's who I was. That's not fully who I am. Like I've grown. We're supposed to grow. We're supposed to progress. We're supposed to, you know, and I think like when we do start changing, I think sometimes that can be a little like our partners are like, okay, what's going on? Like,
mm,
who are you
yeah,
talking to? You know, like,
right. Of course.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah, I always say this, but I'm gonna wrap up in a little bit. But I will say, like, whenever you're on your healing journey, and a lot of you guys who are still tuned in, you know that when you're doing this healing, people are either going to be inspired by your journey or like threatened by it. So it's really important to just know that because people are going to have expectations that you're going to stay the same, and that just might not it's just not going to jive well when you are evolving. So that's just something I wanted to, you know, just bring up. So thank you for reminding me. Um, but I'm gonna start wrapping things up in the next like 5 minutes or so. So Stephine, anything else you wanted to say on this topic?
My mind is blank. I don't know. I think sex is powerful. I'll say that the last live call we had was amazing. We had this mind blowing, like, it was like this meditational, like, transformative thing that Yats did. Everybody who was in it was like, whoa.
Mm,
And at the beginning of the call, you know, he had said, you know, sex is physical. And I will say this, sex is not always physical.
mm,
Like, I'm actually investigating now where just by a touch, or not even a touch, by energy, you
mm,
can have an orgasm.
mm.
Like
Yeah.
just feeling somebody hovering. over your body with that energy, you know?
Mm.
So I was thinking, oh man, I need Yats to read up on that. So, because the meditation he did combined with that stuff would have been, it would have been, it would have,
Mm.
everybody would have been like, whoa, Yats, whoa. So anyway,
He needs to do
I'm
a
very
men's.
thankful for the gauntlet and you guys, very thankful.
Aw, thank you. And I just want to say, like, Yats, and on that topic, Yats needs to do like a mastermind for
Yeah.
men on that. Yep. We'll write
Yes.
on
Oh
the
my
agenda for our next meeting.
God. Yes. Take notes, boys.
Take notes. All right. So Stephine, thank you so much for hopping
Okay.
on. It takes a lot to come on here. So everyone give Stephine some love. Tell her thank you. Tell her how
Thank
beautiful she
you.
is. And she does not look like a strawberry. She looks stunning.
Okay,
Um,
how do I? Okay, wait.
this should
Let me.
be,
Okay.
all right, let's see if we get it. All right, guys. So just a few notes as we wrap up. Thank you guys all for joining. I do just want to bring up, that like one of the key aspects that I think a lot of people struggle with when we're talking about, romantic relationships and building into intimacy is how do we build into intimacy slowly? Because we crave it so much. We're just like, I want it, I want it, I want it. And so sometimes we just go full throttle and we go too fast. And, if it, again, like that's what sends the avoidant running. And then that's what sends like the anxious attacher just like chasing. There's like, I need this, and it's running away from me. So it's really important to, build into intimacy slowly. And it's up to us to decide how that looks. And so, it can just be like, setting certain boundaries for like what time of day you have dates, or just like where you plan to like meet people, like, out for coffee as opposed to like out late for, drinks, and, where there's alcohol or drugs involved or anything like that. So, really looking at what intimacy looks like for you. And what you need to, I think that's like the most tangible thing, we can like look at is like, how do we build intimacy within ourselves? But also, there is that underlying aspect of trust. How do we trust ourselves? And then how can we trust another person? How can we identify people to feel safe with? Like that safety is so important. Security, so, so, so important. So on that note, I am going to wrap up. I have a couple of announcements. We do have, so if you like this talk, we have our next live call on Tuesday, August 16th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to put that one more time into the comments because Yats, he told me, you guys don't tell him. He's not going to watch this, so it's fine. But he told me how to pin a comment, and I forgot. So there is the link. So that is the EFC. That's our Emotional Freedom Collective. So if you want to join, you can join for just $1 to trial for 2 weeks, and then you will get access to all of our previous call recordings. You can see how amazing that first call was that Yats did on sex, intimacy, and trust in relationships that Stephine was just talking about. There's an amazing activity, exercise, meditation in there that he led the whole group through. So you didn't miss anything. You have access to all of these things. We started last December. So you'll have access to December, January, February, all the way up until August, like all of those calls, and so many other things. So we'd love to have you on our next call. The call is about 2.5 hours. And it's a great community. So just please join. There's so much in there. And, all the best on your healing journey, because if you're in here, it's because you're curious and you want to heal and you want to live a life that's more fulfilling. Or, I mean, given the topic for the call tonight, you just want better sex. But guess what? We just gave the layout on how to do that. And Yats is going to go even deeper into this topic on Tuesday, as I said, and definitely when you join the EFC, the Emotional Freedom Collective, just watch that first call so you can just be caught up and you can be in the know and ready. Because guess what? Summer is not over. It ain't over till it's over. So it's still hot out there. It's still sexy. So go get your hot boy, hot girl summer on. But hey, just remember, you got to be able to see who are the safe people that you can be intimate with. So everything that we do really does have, consequences. So who you choose to be sexually active with, all those things. When we're talking about sex, it is so energetic, and it is so profound and powerful. So it is important to just be mindful about how we're, doing those things with. So with that, I digress, and I'm going to leave you guys all for the night. So thank you guys for joining. And yeah, it was so nice to be in here. Thanks for having me, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye, y'all. Have a good night. Ciao, ciao.
Hey, and welcome to the Inner Yats YouTube page. If you like our content, make sure you click the like and the subscribe button so that you get more of these amazing videos that keep coming your way.